Somebody say freedom. Somebody say America. Huh? Look at this. Look at my Crocs. They're awesome. Look at these Crocs. I got America on my suit. I got freedom on my suit. It's 4th of July. It's America. Freedom. Water. Other liquor people probably like. Let me get closer to the mic here. There we go. Now we're cooking. Bring that a little closer. How you doing? It's about 4th of July. Not exactly sure when this is going to come out. Maybe on, before, or after. Whenever it is, it's a good time to celebrate America. Amen. Start to sound like a preacher. Here we are. About 6 years shy of 250. Take these glasses off because I cannot see. All right. Howdy. So, we find ourselves in quite an interesting time. Right when I started my podcast, I remember thinking of doing this episode with this outfit on, and you may be asking yourself, Trevor, have you always had that outfit? And I will ask you, why don't you have one like it? All right, just as powerful, if not more so, of a question. And I envisioned me giving a podcast on why America is great and talking about or addressing the reasons or addressing the things that people say or the reasons why America is not great, addressing those. I didn't think I would be addressing it in a time like this, that is for sure, to say the least. Right now, frankly, it feels hard to wear something like this, right? It feels hard to, heck, I got Captain America sock on one foot and a Superman sock on the other, all in red, white, and blue. I mean, I got American flag Crocs, for crying out loud, and like it's supposed to feel awesome, but right now it's tough to wear. It's right now I think all of us find it hard to celebrate America right now for one reason or another. Some feel the need to not even celebrate America at all. I do not find myself in that camp, by the way, but and then even those of us who do feel the need to celebrate America, who love America, we find a few more reasons on our conscience to go, man, like this great place is under threat. There's some hard stuff going on that we're going through, and it's a tough time. I mean, we got a lot of stuff going on. We got some racism being addressed, some of it correctly, some of it not. A lot of violence, a lot of chaos, many examples, lack of leadership, and to top it all off, we find ourselves in the middle of a pandemic, of a virus that has forced us to go inside, to stay in shelter in place, to social distance. One of my pastors, I like what he said. He said, if you were to tell me the phrase social distance before this all happened, I would have thought that it was like a new, edgy phrase that antisocial people like to use. And who would have thought that would have meant what it does now? It's tough. We're hurting, and through all the stuff we're going through, the virus makes it even harder because we can't come together like we were able to in the past, in many cases. But what I'd like to talk to you about today is, why do I think America is still great? This isn't some sort of "Make America Great Again" speech. No, that's not at all what it is. Frankly, well, I won't get into that, but I'm just going to tell you why America is great, why it has been great, and why the reasons why you think it's not, I'd like to address those. Because it's true that some people in this country feel that it is great and others do not. Some of those reasons are justified entirely. I think some of them aren't. But let's get into it. So, what is it about America that makes it great? When I think it's great, why I think it has been great, why it always has been great. What is it that made it great? And I think it is because America was founded on an idea. Now, many people say this. Many people talk about this idea that America was founded on. America was founded on an idea. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean what countries have traditionally been founded on. That either being a royal family, ruling other groups of people, that being a tradition, that being even a religion, or a specific people. Those have been the traditional reasons to, not reasons, but the traditional sort of bedrocks that countries have been founded on. But not America. America was founded on an idea. And what is that idea? I think the best way to say what that idea is it is the idea that every person has inherent human value and dignity, that the government is for the people by the government is for the people by the people, and equality as a human being, equality of opportunity to everyone. I think that's the idea that America was founded on. Now, you may say, I know immediately what you're thinking. Everyone? Really? Everyone? And sort of my thesis, if you will, of this first bit of the podcast is that this idea was actually really ahead of its time. It really was. So think of it this way. Back about 250, 300 so years ago, well, people were definitely racist. No disputing that. And they found themselves in a different sort of moral paradigm, right? Where at their time, it was accepted that other races were different than you. It was accepted that men and women are not equal under society, under law. Just in many, or at the time, that's kind of where it was at. But the founding fathers put forth this system that granted equality and liberty to each and every one of its citizens. And so what I'd like to do for this first brief moment is kind of talk about this essay I wrote. So this last class that I took this past semester at UC Berkeley, by the way, I study history at UC Berkeley, American history, and it's been awesome. And over what I've learned, I still think America is great, and here's why. Over this past semester, I learned a lot about kind of what does patriotism and citizenship mean. It was a phenomenal class, very intellectually stimulating. And at the very end of the class, I had to write an essay on how do certain groups of how have certain groups of Americans historically understood patriotism and citizenship, right? Because citizenship is like the rights granted to you if you are a part of the country. And then patriotism is a love and loyalty to the country. And so you say at the inception of the United States, there were a lot of people who, they're like, why should I love and be loyal to this country? It's treating me like garbage. Or, man, a lot of the rights that this country affords people, I'm not seeing any of those. So how have these groups of people understood it over the years? And I think there's been a progression in such a good, positive way. See, the American system when I say it's ahead of its time, it allowed for growth, for correction. Maybe we take for granted the idea that government is by the people, that our rights come before the government and are not given by the government. I think we take that for granted. People about 100 to 200 years ago did not. So the system that affirms that you have inherent value and dignity before the government, and that the government is for you, for the people, it has allowed voices of the groups who have been oppressed to speak out, to take action, to protest, to enact legislation, to correct the system so that those who have been under oppression are no longer. And I think that is an absolutely beautiful thing. You look at the very beginning of the country, and yeah, the founding fathers, say what you will about them, but there's significant evidence that suggests that they knew exactly how bad slavery was. I think it was Jefferson who says, it said something about, I tremble at the justice of God when I think of slavery on this country, something along those lines. Meaning that I think he knew exactly what was coming over the issue of slavery. And there were even black voices who utilized the system, making petitions, if you will. Right at the beginning, look up Prince Hall, and the petition to the Massachusetts state legislature. Incredible piece of work. So right at the beginning, we already have evidence of these groups trying to use their voice. I mean, even like Abigail Adams, who is trying to talk a little bit more about women's rights at the founding of the country. And so the decades go on, more and more people start calling for abolition of slavery. More and more white people are on the side of abolition. And they are they've been afforded this opportunity in this country to voice their concerns and to take legitimate action to the point that they brought it to the status of a war that was fought, that resulted in more deaths of Americans than any other war. And thankfully, the good side, the morally right, the ethically correct side won, and slavery was ended. And the status quo of the subjugation of human beings based off their color of their skin was ended when you start implementing 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. And I think that's just an incredible testimony to the system of government that was set up at the very beginning of the United States. And then you look at a group of Americans, the women, right, who did not have any voting rights, property rights, writing or working in government, or at least holding office in government for that nature. And then what do? They raise their voices, they take action, and they use the system to enact change. And then what happens? They get the right to vote. But then, guess what? Say, all right, we have these laws that got us a little bit further. But you know what? We're still not equal. Under the law, in the workplace, in the public sphere, we're still not equal. So what do? Civil rights movement happens. And you have the two Civil Rights Acts in the 60s that are putting it under law that discrimination is illegal on the basis of race or gender. And I think that's a beautiful testament to the American system, because here's the thing. Big changes like these, historically, what they did was they had to fundamentally change the system in which was put in place over them. Very rarely, in fact, I would even argue that America is the first in which the people who were oppressed were able to use the system itself to bring themselves out of oppression. And that, I think, is what makes America so great, is that it has the system that was put in place at the very beginning allowed for people to come out of oppression. So, I would like, among other things, we could get into that for a long time. That essay was a fun thing to work on because I learned a lot, and it's true. There's a lot of bad things that the United States did, but seeing the resiliency of the American people over the years, the fortitude of them, only made me just appreciate America even more. And I'm not so much just saying the government itself. I'm actually more so saying America as a people, America as the idea. Right? Now, there's a lot of people who they hate America because they think that it was founded upon slavery, racism, conquest, and other wrong things. And the issue is that that's not what it was founded on. I already spoke about what it was founded on. It was founded on an idea. Now, did those things happen when it was founded? When it was founded, yes, they did. But let me put it into context for you. Those things have been as old as man. For as long as there has been different colors of man's skin, for however long there has been men and women and children who are from different places than others, there has been discrimination on the basis of race and ethnicity. Racism has always been there. Always. And slavery is as old as the idea of property has been in the human conscience. Okay? It's very, very old. Now, I will say that slavery was a little different in the United States, chattel slavery, because it was quite new for someone to be a slave their entire life, and to be a slave just on the basis of their race, and then also the treatment of slaves in the American South, in some cases, was worse. But the idea and the institution of slavery, it was nothing new at all. And also conquest. You say, well, America conquered these indigenous peoples, the tribes, and oppressed them, slaughtered them, things of this nature. I don't at all mean to discredit at all what has happened to the indigenous peoples of the United States over this time. But I have to speak truth where it is, and the fact of the matter is that. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to pause for a second. My dogs were barking. Anyways, the fact of the matter is that conquest was nothing new. Conquest was happening long before Europeans got to the United States. Simply put, well, not simply put, but take for example the conquistadors when they got to Central America. And they happened upon the Aztecs, which, by the way, it was found that when they were consecrating a new temple to a new god or something like that, they sacrificed 80,000 people in a week. A week. Can you fathom that? A week. So imagine a society where European society where they believe that people have the image of God, and they happen upon a society who slaughters people to their gods. They are more than justified in exterminating them. And you know what? the people, you know who helped the conquistadors? Other tribes who were getting their people taken away from the Aztecs. It shows that the Aztecs were conquering too. They were oppressing other people. It's been on this side of the planet for a long time, and also a lot of the conquest and slaughter you hear of is mainly disease. Now that was something that um, it could not be helped. There was no prevention of that. I mean, there was hardly any idea of germ theory at this time. And so they show up and then people are just dying all of a sudden. They're like, what the heck is going on? And most indigenous people died because of that. And now that's awful. And the numbers that died from that were incredibly high. And it's such a travesty. But yeah, there was violence that Westerners did when they came here, but it was nothing new, and disease played a larger role than people make it out to. And that's not to say that there wasn't peace at times either. Okay? So, with that being said, America has... Oh, sorry, I want to say one more thing about slavery. Slavery persisted long after the Civil War ended, not in America, but... well, some may argue the prison systems, but that's a different discussion. But outside of America, slavery existed for a very long time, and to this day in third world countries, it still does. And actually, I think there's a country in Africa that didn't outlaw slavery until the 1980s, I think it was. Yeah, it's been around, and so to say that America was the only one to do it, or at least the only one to do it as bad as they did, is, or at least it was some new thing, and that America is especially wrong for it, it's misplaced at best. It's misplaced. But I will tell you some things that made America and the West, more broadly speaking, stand out from other nations. Were a few things, and the first one was the Enlightenment / scientific revolution, and the scientific method that was bred out of this period is the exact method that has been used to create the wonderful technology that we experience here every single day in our lives. And it's also the reason why medicine has advanced so much so to where it has today. I mean, you compare it to just even 100, 200, 300 years ago, it's leaps and astronomical bounds. And the scientific method came from the Western ideals. And then also the sense of modern democracy that we know today, representational government. That's a Western ideal. For the first time, you start to have thinkers putting forth the idea that government should be by the people, not over the people, and the government should be for the people, again, not over the people. That's a Western idea. It hadn't been tried on the scale at all, with I dare say the success that it has been in as it has in the West. And then also a big thing that comes out of modern democracy is individual rights. The idea that each person was made in the image of God, that immediately affords individuals a baseline respect, like the right to life, the idea that you can have a purpose in your life, that you should have an opportunity in your life. Even you have the right to possess property, things like this. And then also, because of this idea of the image of God being bared by every single person, the groundwork for equality was made. That's a baseline level of equality right there, because each person shares with you the image of God. And I would definitely say that there were other societies that did not affirm it at all. In fact, people who were right next to you, there was no reason to believe that they at least possessed a baseline amount of rights and human value as you did, unless they proved it. But here in the West, it wasn't a matter of prove; it was a matter of you were created with that. And lastly, the West was the first to institute capitalism, which skyrocketed the standard of living astronomically. I mean, you look at the standard of living from 1800 to 1900, and then 1900 to say like 1950, and then 1950 to today. It's incredible how fast the standard of living rose over the years. And historically, wherever capitalism has been put in place, people have thrived and they've grown. But see, today a lot of people want socialism. Wherever socialism has been instituted, societies have crumbled, and the quality of life has gone down a lot. And it just goes to show. I'll go off on a quick little tangent here. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, that's not true socialism, or it's not true communism." Well, when you start putting it in place as many times as it has been tried over the 20th century, maybe it is true. Maybe it is true socialism and true communism. Maybe that's exactly how human beings behave. And you may throw what you want at capitalism, and I'm not saying full-blooded or full-blown capitalism is 100% correct. Obviously, in America, we lived in a mixed, I think it's called a mixed economy, where there is some government regulation and oversight. Of course, those things are necessary, but your gripes with capitalism are more like crony capitalism, and that's actually when capitalists get in bed with the government. And that's the same government that'd be ruling you and deciding everything in socialism. So when you get the capitalism a little bit more distant from the government, that's actually when people thrive. But I don't need to go into an economics lecture right now. So these are Western ideals that has set apart the West as far as Europe and America. But I would argue that while a lot of these ideas were conceived in Europe, I would say that they hadn't been implemented nearly as strongly or first as they have been in America. And so I think America has been a leader in pushing for Western ideals, and I praise it for that. Also, just on the global scale, look at what America has been over the past as far as wars are concerned. World War I, World War II, completely different outcome if the United States hadn't gotten it involved. And you can tell this because the way of the war was not going so well until America stepped in. And America was trying to push for things like instituting capitalism because, like I just said, it has a proven track record. Socialism, communism does not at all. And what did they do? What has America done? America has laid down thousands of American lives for the sake of Koreans. Without America, I think it's safe to say that what is North Korea would be the entire Korean peninsula. And I think we could all agree that that is wrong, that is bad, and it's horrible. But now you have a place like South Korea that has a thriving economy. It's doing very well, and there's a sense of democracy there. Quality of life is much better than North Korea. And even Vietnam, it was fought for, it was kind of taken as the same thing as Korea, fighting to uphold liberty and human dignity for its people, because there was an oppressive government who was communist and socialist that was coming down on its people, and tried to put a stop to it. Didn't work out, and things got tougher for them. But I guess we can't win all of them. But that's what America's done in the world. And I mean, you even look at places like the Middle East. People think that we're going in there to conquer, but you talk to people in the military, and guess what? There's people in the Middle East, it's very common, that work with the United States, because guess what? The problem that the United States is over there to fight There's a lot of people in the Middle East who don't like that, or who want to solve that problem too. They want to get rid of it. The idea of terrorism, right? Those terrorists aren't there just terrorizing America. Right? They're terrorizing their own people, right? America has led economically for a very long time. I would say at least just shy maybe of a century, and been close at leading for much longer. Also, people want to come to America. This is the first place people want to move to make a better life to. Excuse me, to make a better life at. I mean, I talked to my friends who are Hispanic, and talking about the countries that they came from, where security, the opportunity for individual growth, is very scarce. And if it's there, it's not nearly to the degree that America affords. Even I have a good friend in the middle, or from the Middle East, sorry, and he says the same thing. The opportunity in this country is much, much, much better, and just the overall quality of life here is, it's better, and he's very thankful to be here. And he loves being here. I have a friend. I have a lot of friends. No, but I met a friend from Venezuela. I don't know if he's listening right now. Howdy, if you are. You know who you are. But I have a friend from Venezuela. If you've been watching the news over the past few years, socialism has caught up with Venezuela, and people are starving in mass numbers, eating rats and trash in the street, and people are struggling to stay alive. He came from there, actually kind of recently too, and you ought to hear him talk about America, man. He loves this place. He loves it. And then also, I have friends from Asia, and they talk about the stuff that their grandparents had to endure, even maybe their parents who might be a little older, under Maoist China. Right, this was a very oppressive place, and people tend to forget that millions upon millions and millions, or at least tens of millions of people were killed just in communist China alone. And I hear him say, they call out what's going on in America, and they're saying, hey, I'm starting to see some of the stuff that my grandparents had to deal with, and even current people in China have to deal with, because it's still communist there. It's a little bit different than how it used to be, but it's still an oppressive regime. And they say, hey, America's starting to show some of those signs. Don't do that. So how come a lot of Americans can't see it? And these people who immigrate here to America, they get it. They see what is good about America. How come? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because we were born here. We don't know any other harder life. We've had it easy. I heard an Indian man from India who immigrated here. He was on the phone with a friend from India who wanted to move to the United States, and he said, I want to move to a country where the poor people are fat. Okay? That's a very stark statement, but it highlights a truth very, very seriously. And the quality of life in America, in the West, it's just incredible. And the opportunity, the way that you can live your life with security, it's second to none,